Hi friends, Mickey Mankus here and welcome to Out the Back Door. Today I'm going to be canning up apple pie filling. Come along. One apple that we really enjoy is called a Honeycrisp apple. This was developed at the University of Minnesota. It's been around for a fair amount of years, not that long, but the area that we live in up further north, it doesn't grow as well for us. We have tried a couple of times and we got a lot of apples, and then pretty soon the Honeycrisp apple trees were dying. So it's just kind of a hit and miss. So they do in like a zone 4 or warmer. They'll do better in that. But anyway, I love the Honeycrisp because it is such a crisp, crunchy apple, and it has a bit of tartness to it along with the sweet. I like these a lot better than even Granny Smith. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be canning up today to put into my pie filling. First thing I want to do though, I've got a bowl over here already, and I've put kind of warm water in it. It's not hot, and I'm going to put some citric acid in it. The reasoning for this is because when I start cutting up my apples and slicing them, I'm going to put them into the water here because I don't want them to turn brown while they're sitting out. So I'm just going to put a small amount. I don't know, maybe half to 3/4, I'd say half a teaspoon. Not a whole lot for the amount of water that I have in here. You can put lemon juice in there. It'll help so that your apples don't start turning brown. Okay, I've also grabbed another bowl because I'm going to be putting my scraps in here. I'll put my peels in here and I'm going to core them out. Because of the size of the apple, I'm not going to use my apple core to get the center out or anything like that. I usually use it like on pears or if I have larger apples. I guess if I had more apples this size or a little bit bigger, I would use my apple core, but they're small enough that I'm just going to use a knife to take care of that. Now the reason I'm going to be keeping all my scraps in here and everything is because later on I'm going to be making apple cider vinegar out of them. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye out on that video. Alright, I'm going to start by peeling these. You may see that I've got my pressure canner in the back. We are not pressure canning these. We are going to be water bath canning these, but I'm kind of cheating today. I didn't want to dig my water bath canner out, and being I'm doing these in quart jars, I didn't want to have to fill up that much water in there. So I am going to steam can these. You go ahead and water bath can them if you want, so that's not a problem. If you want to steam can along with me, I'll show you how to do that also. Alright, so I do have a pile of apples that I'm going to have to peel here. And then I'm just going to cut them in half and then in quarters right now. And I'm going to be cutting out the core area. And I really don't want any peel on there. I see I had missed a little bit because the peeler didn't get down in there very far. So as I said, we're going to be doing quart jars. And the reason that I do quart jars and I don't do pints is because when I make a pie, a quart usually fills up a standard size pie shell. Now, it doesn't always. Sometimes it's a little bit shy. And if that happens, but you happen to have an extra apple on hand, all you have to do is peel one of those and slice it up, and you can mix it in with your quart of canned apple pie filling. That's not a problem. Okay, I like big chunks in my apple pie, so I'm cutting them one more time so I've got them like in eighths, and then I'm going to set them into my bowl with the citric acid in there. Some people have mentioned, well, you have to blanch your apples before you can them. I never have. And I questioned that on a couple of groups that I follow sometimes. And it's like, you know, I was asking them and nobody's chimed up on that and said, well, yeah, they blanch. No, they don't. And it's like, I don't know. I'm going by the way I've always done it. Now, you can use any type of apple that you really want, but the ones that hold up better are a little more tart, a little bit crunchier. I guess I would stay away from like a Macintosh because that's a softer apple, but it's totally up to you. If I have any extra apples, once I get my jars filled and everything, what I'll do with the slices and the pie filling sauce we're making, I'll cook that up in a small pan just so it softens up, and then I will be making apple turnovers for Mr. Mankus. If you haven't seen the video on when I did apple turnovers, I'll leave a link for that if you want to check that out. So right now what I'm using for my canner is, like I said, I'm using my pressure canner, but I'm going to steam can and your water bath canning, and I hope I'm not confusing you, especially if you've never done this before. I can fit 7 regular mouth quart jars in my 921 All-American canner. Alright, I finally have all of the apples peeled, sliced up and everything, and I had to go and swap bowls out because I didn't realize how many apples I had. So pleasantly surprised, I had more than I anticipated. Plus I went and switched out the bowls for the scraps. I have close to 1 gallon of the apple scraps so that I can make vinegar later, so I've got them sitting aside. Alright, so in order to make the, what do you want to call it, apple goo, the delicious sauce, thickened sauce and everything that's in with the apples when we can it and everything, this is what we're going to need to do. It calls for 10 cups of water. What I like to do is I use 1 quart of my homemade apple juice in there and then 6 cups of water. So I'm going to open this up. Yes, this is from a while ago already. This is 2016 that I canned this up. I can up a lot of apple juice every single year stockpiling because I use it in different recipes and besides using it for drinking. This past season, it was like I couldn't find apples anywhere because of the horrible freeze that we had late spring. I believe it was May 28th and 29th, somewhere around there. And what had happened is the temperatures got down into the low 20s. Any of the apple trees, well, any fruit trees and anything that had blossoms on them actually froze out and died off, so they didn't produce any fruit. So we happened to be in that area. I wasn't able to get the apples that I normally do to make more juice. But anyway, so just so I get this measured correctly, this should be 1 quart. And see, it was a tiny bit shy. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more water. Now, if you don't have apple juice, that's fine. You can just put 10 cups of water in, not a problem. Well, sorry, I was having technical difficulties. I don't know what was going on with my camera, but what I ended up adding was I've got cinnamon here, and I put 2 teaspoons of cinnamon in. I like to use the Ceylon Cinnamon. And also I've got nutmeg in there, 1/4 teaspoon. I don't know if I can grab the footage off of what I was recording earlier that seemed to be glitching, showing you how I was opening these, and because I had put them into my vacuum chamber before and sealed them all up. In fact, I had to use this handy little gizmo here, being my hands aren't strong enough to actually pop the seal on it, and so that I was able to open it. The next thing we added in was salt, and I had to put 1 teaspoon of salt in here also. One thing I want to mention about the salt, sugar, things like that. These are things you should be stocking up on because they have a lifetime shelf life. Yeah, lifetime shelf life. Yeah, okay. So they're going to last indefinitely in your pantry as long as they are properly sealed up and everything. So the way things are going nowadays around the world and this and that, and as far as getting groceries, I would suggest to start stocking up like on your salts, your sugars, different things like that. Honey's great for a lot of different things. But anyway, that's a different video. Okay, so just a quick recap of what we've got in here. We've got 10 cups of liquid. You can put just straight water. I ended up putting 4 cups of my homemade apple juice and then 6 cups of water in here. I also added 4.5 cups of sugar. I used raw cane sugar. We used the clear gel. It happens to be the thick gel brand that I used, 1 cup of that, or you could use 1 cup of cornstarch in here. Also the nutmeg, we used 1/4 teaspoon. The cinnamon was 2 teaspoons. Salt, we used 1 teaspoon. And so far, that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this onto the burner now, and I'm going to bring it up to a boil, and I'll be stirring it, and I want to get it thick. And once it gets all thickened up and everything, we're going to go on to the next step. Okay, I have my jars in the oven. I was sterilizing them and getting them hot. I had them at 225 degrees Fahrenheit, and I had them in there for over 20 minutes. That is the minimum time you want them in there if you are planning on sterilizing. We are going to be processing more than 10 minutes. So actually they don't need to be sterilized, but you do want clean jars. And remember to check the tops and everything, your rims, make sure that they don't have any nicks, cracks, anything like that in there. So what I'm going to do is start loading up my jars right now while my I don't want to call it syrup, but my apple goop is cooking on the stove top right now, coming to a boil. I'm going to start filling up my jars with the apples. And I don't even know that I'm going to use all 7 quarts. That's what's going to fit into my can, or if I mentioned that earlier or not, I don't recall. Okay, and we don't have to like smash these in here. Boy, the way that I'm filling this up, we might only have 3 or 4 quarts at the most. That's okay. You know, that's my favorite line. That's okay. Oh, we also want to do a 1/2 inch headspace. I'm trying to get the apples to settle down a little bit more. I did manage to get apples in all 7 quarts, but I've got a few apples left. This is my way of kind of like nicely smushing them in. As far as debubbling, this isn't the easiest, but we have to make sure that we do that. This really smells good. Okay, we've gotten it thick enough. The longer you cook it, the thicker it's going to get. So don't overcook it. But the next thing we need to do is we're going to add lemon juice to it. And you're using store-bought. Don't start squeezing lemons. All right, we need 3 tablespoons of the lemon juice added to it. Now, this is a little bit of tartness, but it's also regulating the pH level, and that's why we're going to be water bath canning it. The cinnamon and nutmeg really smell good right now in here. Alright, and I'm probably going to have a lot of this extra left over. So I can put it in a container and stick it in the refrigerator. And, well, I was going to say, if I had ice cream, I could top it over ice cream. It would be good. But I don't have any ice cream right now. I did start heating my water up in my canner. My jars have cooled down a little bit, so I don't want it screaming hot in there. And I'm also using Tatler lids today. So I have those on the back burner scalding right now. One of the reasons I like to can up apple pie filling. I've done cherry pie filling and blueberry pie filling too. But the reason I like to have this on hand and in the pantry is because when I decide to make a pie all of a sudden, I've got all this part done. All I've got to do is make the crust and dump this in and I'm ready to go. With the busy schedule I have all the time, yeah, this is my fast food. Now, check towards the bottom of your jars to make sure that the syrup, the pie filling syrup, made it all the way down there. There was just a slight little void there that was open. And once I get these all debubbled, then I am going to add the rest of the syrup on top to bring it up to a half inch headspace. And as I mentioned earlier before, if you put this into, it won't do like a 9-inch deep dish. This will fill an 8-inch pie plate really easy. But if you see that you're running short and you want more apple in there, then you can just cut up a regular apple, a raw apple right at that time and add it in when you dump this into your pie shell. So now I'm going to finish topping that off. Remember, don't use any sharp instruments. I'm always using my chopstick. All right. And actually, we didn't do too bad as far as the amount of syrup in here. I thought I was going to have a lot extra, and I don't. And clean the jars up really well. Now, I did notice one time when I was doing cherry pie filling, I really don't know what happened. I don't know if I didn't have enough headspace or I forgot to debubble that time or what. I mean, that happens. I mean, I'm not perfect. I ended up canning like 12 jars of cherry pie filling and like 7 siphoned and didn't seal. I had a mess in the canner and I'm just like, ah! And I went and I redid the whole process. So anyway, now as much as everybody is still trying to find, you know, metal lids, the flats, I guess I would suggest venturing out and trying reusable lids. It doesn't necessarily have to be Tatler. It can be Harvest Guard. I would suggest trying to find lids is so hard. I realize that the Chinese are putting lids out. A lot of people are calling them fake lids. They're not technically fake lids, but they're so thin and poorly made that there's a lot of failures. Fingertip tight. Everybody's fingertip is different. I realize that. You know, when I've done the video on how to use Tatler lids, properly use these, and how tight to put your bands on and stuff like that, I had a person literally did what I told them to do, which was good, except they had an issue with the band and the lid and everything came off in the process of canning. And they said, so what happened? I said, it was too loose. So anyway, just you're going to get the feel of it when you do start using Tatler's reusable lids. You will get the feel how tight you need to be putting these bands down. All right, I've got hot water going in there already. I am going to set these in there. Now, you're going to water bath can these, the quarts, for 20 minutes. Now, if you want to learn how to steam can, now's your chance. So, we're going to use a pressure canner. All right, as normal, I put 2 inches of water in the bottom of my canner. And that is what I'm doing when I'm steam canning. Steam canning is going to take the place of water bath canning, but you don't have to use as much water. The steam will can it. So now I'm going to put my canner top on as I normally would. Yes, I made sure that it was clear and everything. Alright, I've got my top down like I normally would if I was in a pressure can, but we're not pressure canning. And I did bring up the temperature high so it'll start building up steam in there and everything. And what we're going to look for is our vent here. We want a steady stream of steam coming out of here. And as soon as we do, we're going to time it for 20 minutes, just as if you were water bath canning and you're waiting for the water to come up to a boil before you start your timing. Well, we're going to wait for it to start venting before we start timing. And it's going to be 20 minutes, no matter if we're hot water bath canning or if we're going to steam can. Okay, so while that is building up, coming up to temp and everything, I've got a lot of dishes to take care of. I'll get those cleaned up and stuff. I've got a really good head of steam going on right now. As soon as the steam was a steady stream, I started timing it for 20 minutes. I've got about 2.5 minutes left on it, and then I'm going to turn the heat off. That's all there is to steam canning versus water bath canning. And like I said, I only put the original 2 inches of water in the bottom of my canner before I put my jars in. And I didn't have to go and submerge the jars underwater in order to do this. The steam is canning it, and it's reaching the boiling temperature that it's supposed to, so it is properly processing. So once that's done, I'm going to turn the heat off, and I'm going to let the steam, the residual steam that's built up in there, come down naturally and dissipate before I start taking the top off. I don't see any steam coming out of here right now, but I can still hear it a little bit inside here. So I am going to loosen up the wing nuts, and I will slowly turn the top off a little bit, but I'm going to leave it sitting on here for about 4 or 5 minutes. A lot of times what they say now is when you are done canning, when your pressure has come down to 0, or if you're water bath canning and your time is up and you've turned your heat off, to take the top off, but just let your jar sit in there for like 5 minutes. Now I've learned, especially with Tatler lids, if I'm pressure canning and things are they're boiling. They're just really boiling in there. I do let them calm down. Tatler even suggests that now, to let your jars sit for about 5 minutes before pulling them out, because they said the reason that they're still boiling and really raring it once you take your cover off is air is still escaping from the jars inside, and that's going to help the seal then if you just let them kind of do that thing. Then I pull them out, and then I'm going to tighten the bands down. Well, I do the same thing when I've done the pie filling. It's just I let it calm down, because that syrup, I haven't even peeked in there yet. It doesn't smell like anything is siphoned, but this is one of the ways I just want to let it kind of calm down a little bit before I start pulling my jars out. If you don't want to, that's totally up to you. That's just kind of the way that I've kind of learned and have gone along, and, you know, trial and error. You know, I've only been canning since, when did I start? 76? Yes, it was only with jam, but that's how long I've been canning. So anyway, all right, when these are ready to come out, I'll show you what they look like. That's how I do exercises. I have to tippy toe. That's another thing if you're new to Tatler lids. When you remove your jars from the canner, whether it's pressure canner or water bath canner, you have to tighten down your bands. And a lot of people just use towels to hang on to it, and another towel on top to tighten it. I just find I've got insulated deerskin gloves. They work the best for me. Oh! And good thing I had gloves on that one. Guess what? We had one that didn't like me when I started tightening it down. I don't know if you heard it or not. We had siphon come out. So I have a feeling tomorrow I'm making apple pie. And I thought I left enough headspace. Another reason we were waiting that 5 minutes. I guess I'm kind of glad that happened so you could see it, that it's like, you know what? Things happen to me too. So now I'm going to let these sit overnight and they'll cool down and everything. Tomorrow morning I'll take the bands off. I'll check to make sure that they're all sealed and everything, and then label them and wash them up, all that good stuff, and get them down into the pantry. So this is how I make my apple pie filling, and it's so super easy. It is a little bit time consuming working with the apples, but you know what? It makes it so much faster when you want a pie, and all you have to do is grab a jar off and dump it into your pie crust. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, share. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. So until next time, you have a wonderful day. God bless. If you do have spare canners or come across any, say at a garage sale, thrift store, whatever, pick them up. I just saw a message from somebody online, and they were looking, they purchased about a 20-year-old 23 quart Presto canner. And she said she wasn't sure what she should offer this person. She was gonna have to have the gauge checked and stuff, which I suggested possibly going to the local county extension office and try. And she mentioned she's in Canada. So I said, well, I'm in the States, so that's where we would have our gauges checked. But she wanted to know what would be a fair price to offer to this lady. And I said, well, I had gone about 3 months ago to our local hardware store, and I was looking at picking up another case or two of jars. And I saw that they had the 23 quart Presto, you know, pressure canner there. And I looked, and it was like, okay, I think it was $69.99, so it was $70 rough. And just about a week ago, I went in there to get some more jars because I need them for some Etsy projects that I'm working on. That same canner was $120. I'm like, you went from 70 to 120? I mean, this is just crazy. Well, I thought that was nuts. And this lady wrote back and she said, for a brand new one around here, it's $300. Oh my goodness. Okay, I guess I'm grateful in a way that I live in the USA because our prices aren't as inflated as they are in Canada. But anyway, so yeah, that's why I was saying, if you find a canner or whatever, hang on to it. Now, I know most countries other than our country, the USA or Canada or whatever, let's go to a different continent, okay? So most people don't know what a pressure canner is. And that's okay. They've been canning, water bath canning for hundreds of years or whatever. That's how they preserve their foods. Things that we would use a pressure canner for. So don't say just because somebody is hot water bath canning a low acidic food for 3 hours that they're gonna kill somebody with it. Just because the USDA or the National Canning Association and everything has all these rules and regulations that they like to brainwash people with. Yes, I say use common sense in safety in canning, but let's not get so carried away where you're controlling everybody, right? So anyway, okay, sorry, I bunny trailed there. I will get to the dishes. But anyway, if you come across those canners, hang on to them. You never know if you're going to need to run more than one at a time, or if there's a friend or somebody that you hear of that needs one and that you can help them out.